In order to save Jack, I broke 2 fingers and couldn't play the piano for 4 years. He promised to win the biggest trophy for me in return, but now, he has given up practicing the 3rd piano concerto for half a year, willingly accompanying Jessica, a junior who can't even play for Elise properly. Feeling disheartened, I decided to quit. Jack, with red eyes, knelt in the rain, hoarsely begging for my forgiveness. I stood on stage, distanced from him by even 10 meters. He openly held hands with another girl, using a piece like for Elise to shatter all my feelings for him. No one could win an award with such a simple piece. I had a chance to win that trophy, but 4 years ago I shielded Jack from a scaffold, had steel bars pierce my left palm, and broke 2 finger bones. That opportunity had been put on hold for 4 years. If I hadn't pushed him away, that scaffold would have broken his neck directly. My palm was bloody, and the blood from my fingertips kept dripping onto the ground. He had cried outside the hospital room, saying he would be my left hand forever. But in the 4th year, his left hand, right in front of me, held another girl's hand. Jack, in his expensive white shirt with bamboo embroidery from his waist penetrating his chest, looked noble and stable. The bamboo was embroidered by me, symbolizing the nobility of a gentleman. When he pinned Cherry down beneath him, allowing her to wrinkle the embroidered bamboo, my feelings for him suddenly seemed ridiculous. Jack, tall and handsome, with a cold and aloof appearance, was very popular. His jet-black messy hair covered his eyes, and those eyes, which used to look dull and lazy, now scanned the audience below, full of arrogance and indifference. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to look at me, but when he did, he hesitated and quickly averted his gaze, looking embarrassed and awkward in my eyes. I should have chosen a different approach. Cherry, disregarding the guidance of the etiquette lady, hurried straight toward me. She looked anxious, like Cinderella about to flee after midnight, afraid of not showing off her pretty dress in time. Jack followed her, displaying a few unconscious signs of permission. Standing in front of me, Cherry involuntarily tugged at her dress. A scent similar to Jack's emanated from her, making me nauseous. I stood upright, consciously stepping aside when Cherry approached to avoid her dress touching mine. This dress was expensive, custom-made. I raised an eyebrow at her and glanced at their intertwined hands, making a disdainful sound. Jack immediately let go of Cherry's hand. Disappointed, Cherry tried to force a smile, her pale and fragile figure looking on the verge of collapse. I had met her briefly at a lecture I attended. During the event, she knocked my cigarette ash off without apologizing, even scolding me for not being careful. I had also witnessed her bullying a classmate, trapping the person in the restroom and slapping them. I had to call the security guard to make her stop. Now, she was conscious of Jack's presence, swallowing her pride to maintain the image of a delicate flower, which appeared quite contradictory. She reached out to touch my left hand, as if the previous conflict had been just a misunderstanding. Jack pulled my hand away from hers, coldly saying, "Don't touch her left hand." He remembered my injury on the left hand, enabling him to play the 4-hand piano piece with another girl so confidently. I calmly pulled my hand from his grip. He didn't dare to stop me forcefully, and just let go. I carefully wiped the spot he had just grabbed with a wet tissue. A coldness flickered in Jack's eyes. Cherry quickly apologized. "Sorry, Jessica, I forgot about your injury." "Jessica, if your hand is okay, you two should definitely perform together. Jack is really a great partner." I didn't look at her, but instead focused on the activities on stage, calmly responding, "No, he's not." The young man in a black shirt on stage lowered his head, the lights dimmed, and a spotlight shone on him, casting a soft halo. Cherry involuntarily looked at Jack's expression, and seeing he hadn't changed his face, she dared to continue, "It's just that my skills are not good enough, otherwise, Jack would surely bring the trophy back." I gestured for her to be quiet by placing my index finger on my lips. From my angle, I could only see the young man on stage with a high bridge on his nose and a sharp jawline, his spine straight, playing the piano keys fluently and powerfully, conveying a sense of relentless vitality that was so strong it captivated the audience's attention. "With Shawn here, you don't stand a chance," I remarked. When they followed my gaze, Shawn happened to finish the last note. As Shawn turned to give his bow, the gold feathers embroidered on his black shirt seemed vividly lifelike, displayed prominently in front of everyone. After seeing that, I couldn't help but be surprised. Despite the grand occasion, Shawn remained as straightforward and unrestrained as ever. Jack, eyes fixed on the similar feathers on me, looked extremely displeased. Even a fool could see Shawn's affection for me. Jack, staring at the similar design, irritably loosened his tie, his bony hand tightly gripping Cherry's wrist, pulling her off balance. "Are you done talking? Let's go," he said. If it weren't for Cherry by his side, he could have reprimanded me without reservation, asking me to behave and not flirt around. Because of Cherry, he couldn't stand on a moral high ground to criticize me, even if he believed he was hiding it well. Cherry's long eyelashes were slightly damp, hinting at tears. She stubbornly refused to let them fall, following Jack out. Turning back to me, Jack explained, "Jessica, we were just doing it for the performance effect." He attributed the unspoken ambiguity between him and Cherry to testing me. In our four-hand piano performance, we had seen the admiration in each other's eyes. We had waited together for the sunrise by the beach, seen gigantic sea creatures up close, shared a youthful kiss at sunset, and carefully embroidered his performance attire. While he was doing intimate things with me, he had long chat records with Cherry in the early morning, prepared expensive birthday gifts for her, and even when he had her pinned on the table in the studio, he made sure she didn't catch a cold by using his shirt to shield her from the chill. The surveillance footage that I accidentally stumbled upon shattered my beautiful dream, revealing the sharp and ugly truth. From initially complaining about Cherry, he ended up subconsciously avoiding messaging her when I was around. It only took 3 months. His voice grew softer, and he eventually felt like he was babbling. I looked up at him and softly said, "Jack, where's my trophy?" Jack froze in place, his face pale, wanting to explain, but only managing to open his mouth without speaking a word. Cherry was his Alice, then who was I? What did I mean to him? Surrounded by others, Shawn stood in the middle, like the center of a galaxy. The corners of his dark, narrow eyes drooped slightly, reflecting the dazzling lights on the stage, and when he looked at me through the crowd, his normally calm and cool eyes revealed a hint of a smile. I felt guilty under his gaze. When everyone took a group photo, Shawn and Jack stood together. Cherry didn't step forward, but stayed by my side, smiling and speaking softly. To others, it seemed like we were close, but I was the only one who heard what she said. She remarked, "How can a cripple like you match up to Jack?" I chuckled lightly. "Why don't you ask Jack if he dares to look down on a cripple like me?" Then, I turned and walked towards the piano on the stage, sat on the piano bench, straightened the creases in my gown, let my left hand hang at my side, and placed my right hand on the keys. The music flowed smoothly, similar melodies, and people whispered among themselves. I played the same piece that Jack and Cherry had performed for Alice, but as I played, I almost couldn't resist putting my left hand on the keys. After the piece ended, I looked at Cherry and mouthed, "You can't even match up to a cripple like me." Cherry's face turned from pale to red, glaring at me viciously, as if she wanted to tear me apart. She wanted to achieve a good ranking in this competition with a four-handed performance with Jack, then go abroad to find a school. But I stole all the limelight. How could she not hate me? Shawn pushed through the crowd, placed the trophy between us, and sat next to me. Even so, I could still smell the subtle, icy fragrance that emanated from him. I glanced at him. Shawn's hands gently held mine and placed them in the starting position. It was in that moment when I understood what he intended to do. The third piano concerto. Shawn lowered his head and softly asked, "Jessica, are you ready?" As my fingers touched the keys, creating sounds, Shawn's fingertips danced elegantly, interpreting complex patterns, executing the most difficult techniques effortlessly. Shawn skillfully guided me, making my inexperience apparent, but I refused to give up, pouring all my concentration into chasing after him, our fingers intertwining continuously. The crowd marveled in silence, their eyes fixed on the center of the stage. With 4 powerful, march-like musical notes resonating enthusiastically, the piece came to a grand finish. As it concluded, the audience erupted into thunderous applause. Jack's lips pressed tightly together, struggling to suppress his mounting anger, his face so dark it seemed almost ready to drip water. He knew exactly where to hit me where it hurt the most. And I knew it too. Playing for Alice with one hand was only child's play. Shawn's seamless coordination with me in the performance of the third concerto was the weapon that shattered Jack's pride. After all, even after practicing for half a year, Jack couldn't achieve a perfect rendition, and he knew it himself, how far behind Shawn he was. I stood by his side and whispered a thank you. Shawn looked at Jack, who was clenching his teeth, exuding a good mood, wanting to reach out and pat my head. I took 2 steps back awkwardly, clumsily changing the subject. "Where did you buy that shirt, Jack?" Once I uttered those words, I regretted them. Jack, not particularly bothered, withdrew his hand. "I know the designer who made the dress for you," I begged him. "It's a unique piece." I don't know how long he begged before that old-fashioned man agreed to help. Shawn glanced at my left hand. "I'll see you next time at the competition, right?" I was surprised he could tell that. Not even Jack knew. I planned to tell him after the competition, but he chose Cherry, not my trophy. That trophy was my final chance for him. There wouldn't be a next time. I looked at Shawn and provocatively said, "Shawn, next time the trophy might not have your name on it in advance." Taking his time, Shawn picked up the trophy from the piano bench, turned, and left me with, show me what you've got. Shawn's studio posted photos of the competition with tricky angles. The carefully framed picture prominently featured me. His eyebrows and eyes were clear, holding the trophy on the edge of the stage, with a faint smile on his lips, soft and clear. Behind was me sitting on the piano bench, looking as if I was right next to him. I've known Shawn since we were very young, as he lived across the street from my house. With his parents divorcing and fights breaking out, it even got to the point where the police were involved. He sat outside for 2 hours without anyone asking him anything. The setting sun cast a tail of light. He hid in the shadows, resembling a homeless puppy. Yet he was the most exceptional kid. He aced math, didn't curse, and had a nice smile. I ran out from my mom's arms, stood in front of Shawn, defended him, saying it wasn't like that. Back then, I thought, what idiot stays silent when being scolded? And if my mom had a kid like Shawn, she would have laughed herself awake from dreaming. How could she bear to scold him? Slightly stunned, Shawn looked up at me, his pitch-black eyes deep and unfathomable. I crouched down and quietly reached out my hand to him. Jack, come home with me. Be like a child to my mom. She's nice. She doesn't scold people. I was only up to his shoulder at that time. Shawn looked up at me, a hint of a smile touched his lips, and without hesitation, he reached out to hook my fingers. Okay. Later on, I discovered that from that moment, Shawn wanted to have a home with me. He had thought about it for a long time. Jack was waiting for me at the doorstep. The street lights were dim, casting a surreal and magical warm yellow glow. Cigarette butts littered the ground. The strong smell of smoke from him made me nauseous, inadvertently reminding me of Cherry, whom he spent time with. The overpowering smell of smoke couldn't mask the scent of gardenia on him. It made me sick. From that moment on, I acutely felt my regret for saving Jack. Jack lowered his eyes in frustration and bowed his head, asking for my forgiveness. I raised my left hand and said, Jack, my left hand is perfectly fine now. A glimpse of panic flashed through his calm eyes, which he quickly suppressed. It had been a long time since he had shown such an expression. Over the years, he had been so successful, and had forgotten what it felt like to lose. He clenched his jaw, suppressing the panic in his heart, and asked me, when did this happen? I found it ridiculous and replied, I wanted to tell you before you went on stage. But back then, you were only thinking about how to help Cherry achieve a higher ranking. You didn't even look at me. It was you who personally abandoned us. I took a deep breath and said, let's break up, Jack. Jack's expression turned icy, and he said mockingly, Jessica, if you mention breaking up, there will be no chance of turning back. Do you think Jack truly cares about you? He only fancied the connections of your grandmother. Feeling disgusted by his words, I shuddered all over and resisted the urge to slap him across the face by tightly clenching my fists. I bit my lip hard and forced out an ugly smile, saying, who would want a cripple? Jack was momentarily stunned, asking, what? I tightened my grip and asked, you mean, he only fancied the connections in my family, right? What about you, Jack? Did you also fancy this about me? Jack was left speechless by my question. He didn't love me, but suspected others' love. Taking the knife from me when I trusted him, he stabbed me deeply. Thanks to my youthful impulsiveness, I still had a chance to regret. Looking at the shirt he was wearing with embroidered green bamboos, I reached out and said, give me back the shirt. With a cold face, Jack took off the shirt and threw it on my face. I made a tearing sound and ripped the silk shirt open, with green threads and white silk falling to the ground, getting dirty. His pupils darkened suddenly, exasperated. Do you think Shawn is any cleaner? I sneered and looked straight at him. At the very least, he has never meddled in our relationship. Who do you think you are to find everyone as disgusting as you are? He slammed the door shut. Jessica, do as you wish. The sky drizzled lightly, adding a touch of desolation. I crouched on the ground, red-eyed, biting my lip hard to keep myself from crying without dignity. A slightly cold hand covered my eyes. Shawn's gentle voice reached my ears. Jessica, let's go home. Jessica, I'll take you home. My tears burst out instantly, like a lost creature finding solace, helplessly leaning against him, sobbing. Shawn hugged me, his angular hand rubbing my dark hair. Shawn's house was small, warmly decorated, with 2 bedrooms. It looked like it could shield everything and make people feel at ease. He urged me to take a hot bath. The misty hot water splashed on the floor, raising a white hot mist. I wrapped myself in his light grey cotton robe, which he had never worn, and stepped on the soft and fluffy carpet barefoot, squinting at the bright chandelier. Shawn turned off the overly bright light. How about this? Is it still too dazzling? I closed my eyes and shook my head. Things weren't so bad after all. Shawn always knew just what to do, never pushing too far to be denied. He left a small lamp for me, and I thought he had something to say, but he only tucked in the blanket and left quietly. In the next room, he sat at the piano, tuning it. There were no slow beats, No restrictions to avoid the eruption of intense music. Just the freedom of music flowing, the Goldberg variations. He was afraid I couldn't sleep. Afraid I was in pain. Afraid I couldn't move on. Shawn, forever in my memory, was that gentle and quiet young man. He was my grandmother's most prized student and the pinnacle figure I had looked up to throughout my youth. Whenever my grandmother mentioned him, she couldn't help but say she had found a treasure. To earn such praises from a piano teacher for a lifetime was truly not easy. As a teenager, he had no concept of being inferior to others deep down. He was proud and always eager to compete with me to prove himself. I was impatient and easily upset, often playing the wrong notes. He was strict and precise. "Jessica, you played the wrong note. Jessica, that was a mistake." He patiently corrected me over and over. Shawn wasn't a fun playmate, but he was a good teacher. I sank into the soft blanket and fell asleep deeply. When I woke up in the morning, something soft and warm was on my face. A small kitten was snuggled up against me, its round, shiny eyes curiously peering into mine. I picked up the kitten, opened the door, and found Shawn lying on the narrow sofa, his long, slender figure showing signs of restless sleep. I picked up the blanket that had fallen on the floor next to him. "Shawn, why didn't you go back to the bedroom to sleep?" He made a sound, slowly sitting up, with the loose neckline on his chest, fair skin peeking through, his long-lashed eyes half closed with weariness. I blushed when I noticed his defined waistline and quickly averted my gaze. Shawn took the kitten from my arms and jokingly asked, "Is it bothering you too?" The kitten meowed unhappily in response. He ran his hand through his hair to look more awake. He took 2 bottles of milk from the fridge, put them in the microwave, and said, "It's usually me sleeping in that room. Candy would come to wake me up when she's hungry. I forgot to tell you last night. Did I scare you?" I shook my head. The kitten lay on the sofa, showing its belly in a cute way. "No, it's very cute." He poured warm milk into a saucer for the kitten, and handed me another bottle. "Have some milk first before we eat later." I took a sip and looked at him. "How did you show up last night?" With his back towards me, chopping vegetables. He paused for a moment upon hearing my question. "I thought you hadn't signed any contract, so I dug you to our studio." "Shawn, your lying skills haven't improved at all," I sighed. He turned around, smiled at me, his lips red and teeth white, looking charming. "There's always room for improvement." The video of me and Shawn playing the piano together went viral. My thin figure in a dress and Jack's restrained and aloof posture overnight became the talk of the town. Everyone was buzzing about the piano beauty and the genius pianist. Every touch and movement of their intertwined fingers was magnified. They said that night even the lights couldn't keep clear of their innocence. There was a knock at the door. I opened it, and Jack's face, now without the green stubble, appeared before me. I instinctively tried to close the door, but he blocked the door lock, his voice stiff as he called my name, "Jessica." He seemed awkward after finding out I was not there. No one prepared stomach medicine for him. No one tossed his shirts into the washing machine for ironing. No one made breakfast for him. Quietly, alone without boundaries. Even waking up, he felt cold. He didn't like days like this, but when he saw the oversized bathrobe that didn't fit me well, Jack's expression changed from pleading sadness to extreme anger. He squeezed through the door crack, his face twisted with resentment and betrayal. I had never seen such a terrifying face. It was even more terrifying than the cold stare my mom gave me after I played the wrong notes. "Jessica, we haven't broken up yet. How could you sleep with him?" "Jessica." He looked like a ferocious beast ready to pounce on me and bite my throat. I was covered in cold sweat, sitting on the floor. Shawn heard the commotion, hurried out of the kitchen, and helped me up. Standing in front of me, he shielded me firmly. His face was stern, his tone firm. "Jack, if you step foot in this house today, I'll call the police. If news spreads of you trespassing, your hard-earned reputation will be ruined." Jack's foot abruptly stopped at the doorstep, just a hair's breadth away. He messes around with Cherry, yet he wants me to remain pure. How ridiculous. I stood in front of Shawn, looking straight at Jack. "Jack, you kicked me out yesterday yourself. Did you forget? You said you got your wish. I can't go back. Let Cherry iron that damn shirt for you. Be ordered around like a maid. I'm not coming back." Shawn cast me a deep glance, his expression slightly relaxing, an indescribable tension dissipating. He was afraid. He was afraid I would go back to Jack. He was afraid I would repeat the same mistakes. "You can look back, but you can't go back." But I wanted to tell Shawn, it won't happen. People have to grow. I rented a house next to Shawn's studio. He managed his studio himself and took on competitions alone. The photos he uploaded were taken by his brother online. He pushed the contract in front of me. I touched the trophy prominently displayed on his shelf and said, "I don't want compensation. I want to win the next competition. You can't train your left hand for a long time, work on the piece and memorize it first. I smiled wryly. Shawn, you're still as strict as you were in your childhood. He raised an eyebrow ever so slightly, not denying it. We collaborated on a second piece, a duet for 4 hands. Castle in the Sky. Cherry wasn't wrong. Having a good fan base indeed influenced the judging of competitions. Netizens don't need difficult pieces or complex techniques. They can't understand or appreciate them. As I improved steadily, Jack was being attacked online. The video that made him famous was accused of being a fake. It was actually Jessica playing, the one always by Jack's side. I don't know how the netizens found out. When I heard the news, I had just received a small award from a competition, the third piano concerto, which became my signature piece. Jack sat in the audience. His expression of unwilling betrayal seemed laughable to me. The pinnacle he couldn't reach had my name written on it long ago. By a twist of fate, I had reached it only now. I held the microphone, smiling softly. I'm Jessica. Shawn captured a photo from that competition and posted it on his Twitter homepage. The news about Jack using my video stirred up a storm. He was furious, smashing the trophy on the ground. You promised to keep it a secret. I snatched it back, the sharp edges scratching his face. You also promised to love me forever. I leaned in close to his ear. Jack, I have to look out for myself. Even if you played, you wouldn't win any awards. You would still make mistakes. They praise you as a genius, but deep down, you know the truth. The piece that made him famous was negotiated before my injury, but after the injury, only Jack could replace me. Every time they praised him as a genius, he felt anxious and unsure. I saw it all. If it were me, I would have spoken my mind. But this time it wasn't me. I don't know who the kind-hearted person was. This incident also implicated Cherry, who was revealed to have intervened in our relationship when Jack and I were still together. The internet leaves no privacy. There were even some crazy fans of Jack, who questioned whether I first cheated on Shawn and Jack found someone new out of heartbreak. When Cherry came to the coffee shop looking for me, she was no longer as arrogant and bold as before. Now she seemed humble and cautious. I frequented this coffee shop because they had a piano, and I could play solo, attracting customers for them. Cherry, with a trembling voice, reached for my hand. Jessica, can you help me clear my name? I'm still young. I can't let myself be ruined like this. She had publicly insulted me before. Now she came to me with humility and caution. I furrowed my brows, gently prying her fingers apart. What they said is all true. I can't lie, can I? Tears welled up in her eyes. Her nose turned red from crying. I have nothing with Jack. I can't bear this big burden. I found it amusing. Nothing with Jack. How could she say something like that? Cherry, when you make a mistake, you have to face the consequences. After I refused, Cherry wiped her tears in frustration. What about Jack? Are you just going to watch him get destroyed? Don't you love him the most? No wonder Jack was attracted to Cherry. Their selfishness, forcing others to sacrifice for them, seemed as if they were cut from the same cloth. He did the wrong things. He naturally had to face the consequences. Cherry stared at me intently, trying to find a hint of reluctance on my face. I lowered my eyes, stirring my coffee. Cherry, is that shirt comfortable? She instantly understood what I meant. The color drained from her face, her voice trembling. She asked, when did you find out? I smirked and said, a long time ago. It took her a moment to regain her composure. You have no evidence. I kept smiling, not saying a word. How do you know I have no evidence? The studio's surveillance is connected to my phone. I've watched that video over and over again. Jack comes out from behind the lush trees, his eyes red, looking at me. The excruciating pain seems to have long passed. My heart feels like it grew a thick layer of protection overnight. His tortured look couldn't hurt me at all. He opens his mouth in a terrifyingly hoarse voice. Jessica, I'm sorry. It was her who seduced me. I couldn't resist. I find it funny now that he's still acting. Lightly, I say, I forgive you. He covers his head and shakes it in desperation. No, you haven't forgiven me. He takes out a folding knife from his pocket. Panicked, I step back. The blade cuts down on his wrist fiercely, blood gushing out. This is what I owe you, he says. I'm shocked and blur out. Jack, you're crazy. His face pale, a line of blood trails beneath his feet. Jessica, you saved my life once, now I'm back. Will you come back too? Jessica, can we be like before? I step back and call the waiter loudly. Get him an ambulance. He's really going to harm himself. The waiter is also shocked and hurriedly calls for an ambulance. As for me, I can't wait to leave immediately. Suddenly, online posts about this incident flood in, topping the hot search charts. All about us. Or should I say, all about me. Those comments have been blown out of proportion. When my fingers brush past them, I can't help but shiver. The overwhelming malice is too sudden. Luckily, I'm not one to be silenced easily. They found all my social media accounts. Malicious words fill my inbox, photos of me scattered around. Even the picture of me holding a trophy, as I introduce myself, has been maliciously turned into Best Mistress Award. I screenshot every one of them. Shawn calls, looking anxious and flustered. He tells me to stay off the internet, wait for him at home. I console him with a smile. It's not that serious, I'm fine. Shawn is away for a competition, it will take him some time to get back. The headline about Jack cutting his wrist for love is especially big and eye-catching. His studio adds fuel to the fire. Jack lying on the ground, covered in blood, while a photo of me turning away indifferently is placed on the front page. The waiter from the coffee shop thoughtfully sent me the surveillance video. I'm not sure if this can help you, but it's all I can do, the message read. Inside was a conversation between Jack and me. Thanks. After I get through this busy period, I'll come for a coffee. Cherry took the opportunity to post a legal letter to clear her name, claiming the rumors were false. She's just an amateur and can't defend herself. Implicitly, everything hints at me suppressing her. Since the fire has been lit, I don't mind adding more fuel. I don't have time to spit venom. I mosaic the crucial parts of the video, blur Jack and Cherry's faces, and share it. There's a timestamp on the video. Shawn was performing overseas that day, and there's a program list. While I was attending a presentation, the official social media account of the event posted news about me. I'm not a pro, so there are some things I overlooked due to technical issues. Well, let's just say it was intentional. Discerning eyes can spot the bamboo shirt and the tattoo on Cherry's ankle. I had embroidered the bamboo shirt myself, and he had posted a photo thanking his girlfriend for it. I reposted it. Those fans even envied it, swooning over Jack's love story. In just 2 hours, the repost count reached over 100 million. A national sensation ensued. The trending topics were all purchased by Jack's studio, aiming to tarnish my reputation and vindicate Jack. Identity theft amid adultery is just a side note. Perhaps even his wrist-cutting stunt was staged with the studio's collaboration. Shawn appears exceptionally innocent in this war. Someone anonymously emailed me. They said Cherry enlisted a few of Jack's fans to harm me. She claimed to be a fan of Jack as well. Seeing Jack's journey from such difficulty to now, I don't know why he turned out like this. She doesn't want to see those kids actually committing crimes. I shudder with fear. It was in Jack's fan group chat. Let's harm her hand. Let's see if she'll still be smug. I recognized Cherry's profile picture instantly. I couldn't bring myself to read the rest of the chat. Those fans were very young, incited by Cherry to dare breaking the law for the sake of Jack. Always, there are people with a sense of justice and conscience. The location was a place I frequented, where I saw her coffee shop. They even knew about that. Jack knew, but didn't stop them. I showed up as per their plan. Before that, I had informed Shawn, but I didn't need his help. The alley was dark, shadows intertwining. Cherry lit a cigarette, exhaled, then turned to me with a sly smile. I feigned fear on my face, turning back in panic. Shawn stood firmly in front of me. They hesitated when they saw Shawn. Cherry cruelly extinguished the cigarette and continued to incite them. There are only 2 of them, but we have 5. Break her hand, and we'll have avenged Jack. A young girl came at me with an iron rod. Jessica, you slut, you were the first to cheat, and you've ruined Jack. Shawn grabbed my hand, and we ran towards the main road. Every word was recorded clearly on my phone. Soon after, police cars arrived and apprehended the group. At the police station, I saw Jack. His wrist was wrapped in thick white bandages. Jack failed to control the cut properly, causing nerve damage and functional impairments. He will never play the piano again. His studio was found to have fake contracts and tax evasion. Contracts that Jack had already signed would entail penalties. Even the endorsement deals ended up with nothing left. He saw me and instinctively looked at my left hand. Without my left hand, you can willingly be with me. I felt sad looking at him. You can't accept others being better than you, so you want to destroy me. I casually revealed the truth. It was your idea for her. His face turned pale with despair, muttering to himself, you have nothing, so you'll love me like before. Jack, you're truly terrifying. Cherry and those people were arrested for causing trouble, disrupting social order. Cherry's actions were especially bad, so she was sentenced to 5 years. Jack's grandmother found me, crying and begging for forgiveness for Jack. The gentle old woman with red eyes. When I was with Jack, she smiled and touched my hand, saying it's such a blessing for Jessica to be my daughter-in-law. During festive occasions, she would sneakily give me the delicious food she prepared, saying she hadn't let that boy Jack see it, leaving it all for me. Seeing her like this now makes my heart ache. I helped her up. Grandma, Jack should apologize to me first. Jessica, that boy Jack likes you. That's why he did wrong. Can you forgive him? I played the recording for her to listen to and gently shook my head. Grandma, I can't. It clearly explains how Jack guided Cherry, how he incited those fanatics. It's all there. The old woman trembled, but didn't mention the previous matter again. That boy is a jerk. I didn't raise him properly. She looked at my hand, with a bitter smile. Jessica, your hand is injured. Don't practice the piano for too long. Grandma is going back. I nodded. Take care. The elderly woman's hunched back, walking away step by step. If I didn't bring up this matter, she'd think I was heartless. But Jack hadn't been the upright young man for a long time, and I had no reason to keep it from her. Everything came to a close. Congratulations to me. I won the battle. I took a swig of beer, letting the foam ferment in my mouth. Shawn smiled, telling me to slow down, then clinked his beer with mine. I don't know how much we drank in the end. Both of us were drunk. Shawn chuckled self-deprecatingly. Jessica, you never looked at me. I hiccuped with a smile. My grandmother's favorite student. How could I dare to look at you? Favorite student? Your grandmother said I'm not suited to play the piano. I grabbed a beer, clinked it with him. She's old, her judgment is off. Shawn's eyes looked lonely, his dark, long lashes drooping slightly. A mist of tears forming in his gaze. A hint of red from the alcohol-induced sadness at the corners of his eyes. His voice hoarse. Jessica, I've been chasing you all along. Just give me one look back. From his words, I caught a glimpse of his biggest crush during his youthful days. It shook me to the core. During that time, his parents were divorcing, fighting every day, and he had nowhere to go. The days were particularly dark during that time. Shawn would stand by the window in the stairwell, listening to me play the piano, watching the teenage girl in a white dress, who hadn't yet reached the piano, sitting in front of it all day with red eyes. It was my piano music that helped him come out. Later, his father remarried, and the only condition his father gave was to send him to my house to learn the piano. It all started from that time. I sat up straight, feeling Shawn's warm breath mixed with alcohol intoxicating me. Shawn, it's the name I've heard the most throughout my youth. The boy who stumbled and refused to admit defeat is now shining brighter than me. He came to my rescue multiple times. Just his presence was enough to make my heart flutter. In the open diary he showed me, there were photos of him holding trophies, me sitting on the piano bench, looking so close to him. I was leaning against his shoulder. In my dreams, I sat upright on the piano stool, like an entire afternoon. It felt like I was back before turning 17, at that crossroads. It's as if I still held onto the opportunity to choose. And Shawn, through the window, smiled at me. When I was on stage, Shawn sat below as a special guest, his gaze soft. This was my first stage performance in 4 years. I chose an adapted version of the Swan. I closed my eyes, lightly tapping the piano keys, as if the ethereal, translucent swan landed on a music box, elegant and pure. The noble swan danced gracefully, causing ripples on the water. The white skirt I wore was made of soft, floating white feathers, with a layer of delicate gauze inside, tied around the waist with white silk. I lowered my head, my dark hair cascading behind me, my slender neck pale and smooth like the swan in the Swan. Looking at myself in the mirror, I couldn't help but marvel. Shawn, it's such a waste you're not a designer. Shawn wrapped his arm around my waist, his warm breath burying into my shoulder. He said, a designer loves every muse, but I only want you. As the swan drifted away from the water's surface, leaving a trail behind. As I bowed in thanks, when I stood up, the audience suddenly woke up below, applauding thunderously. I smiled as I got off stage, walking towards a Shawn who had eyes only for me, our fingers interlocking tightly. This time, it's me looking back at you.